welcome to the Crash the Pond podcast. It is a Monday, August 1st edition of the show. The month of July has come and gone, which is kind of crazy to think about. Time is just flying by, but I'm gonna cut all the little chitter chatter here today to start the show because tonight, I should say, we are joined by the one and only Eric Stevens, beat writer for The Athletic, covering the Anaheim Ducks. Someone who I think might be the most quoted person on this show. I think you might lead that category because you really are synonymous with Ducks news, coverage, information. So, Eric, thanks for coming on. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going fine, Felix. I first off, I feel honored, and two, I feel embarrassed, and I kind of want to ask, the lovely followers or whatsoever to find someone way more interesting.
Well, look, we really do
appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate your coverage of the team, and I mean, it really is invaluable, especially over these lean years where things have maybe not been, I don't know what the word you want to use is, the most exciting. Let's just go with that. So we're going to jump right into the news cycle here because I think, before we do that, I almost forgot. Jake would have killed me if I had forgotten this. So as you may or may not have noticed today, Jake, our regular co-host here, Jake Rudolph, is not on the show. And the reason for that is he is welcoming a new member of his family. He had firstborn son, Luke Rudolph. And so we're wishing him all the best. That's the reason he couldn't make it tonight. Of course, he would have rather been here to chat with Eric, but feels like a pretty valid reason not to do a Ducks podcast to welcome in the life of your new son. So
that's a pretty decent reason. I suppose we can let him off.
Yeah, we'll say he's out of the lineup for family reasons, personal issues, something like that. Whatever glib term the NHL would use. Any advice, Eric, for Jake as a first-time father here? I believe you have a couple sons, so any advice that you want to throw his way here?
Yeah, no, actually, it's actually 3 times over, and
okay.
But fortunately, they're all pretty grown now. Although they're still very much kids and boys in some ways. I tell you what, especially for the first one, as long as you get through that first week, the first week does feel like the longest week of your life. Just in between of lack of sleep and wondering why your child won't go to sleep. But as long as you get through that first week, and if you can survive that whatsoever, it's a lot more smoother sailing after that. And after a while, the patience and all that will come, and then you will appreciate all the great and wonderful things that having your children in your life will bring. So congratulations to Jake.
Well, that's really nice of you, and I'm sure he'll be listening to this, and we'll definitely pass that along. Yeah, it's exciting. I don't have any children myself, so I can imagine that sounds like a pretty big endeavor, and just really happy for him because I know that's something he's always wanted. So let's get into today's show. Really, let's get into the meat of it, and I think that it's a perfect time to have you on here, Eric, because up until, I would say, literally up until last week, I would have said that the Anaheim Ducks offseason so far is, there's been some very interesting moves. Ryan Strome, Frank Vetrano, how could we forget Glenn Gaudin, the AHL signing, but nothing really attention headline grabbing, I would say. And then last week, we get the news that John Klingberg, the biggest name, I would argue, remaining on the UFA market defenseman-wise, is now a member of the Anaheim Ducks. 1-year deal, $7 million cap hit. Just so much to unravel here, so much to unpack, and I know you've already written about it, but I guess just first and foremost, Eric, 2-part question here for you. What was kind of your feel of this offseason before this trade happened, or before this signing happened? Did you have any inkling that it was going to happen? And second part is just what was your first reaction to hearing this news?
You know what, Felix? Well, first off, before we dig in, I apologize to everyone for not having video here. It's been out on my laptop for the last little bit, and I am not very technological savvy in terms of fixing these issues. So there's one, and plus you probably don't want to see my mug anyway. I kind of got that
Oh, come on.
summer beard and summer haircut going, so it's not pretty. But no, in all seriousness, I one, yeah, I certainly did wonder if the Ducks would be in on Klingberg. Look, I mean, it was no secret that they needed someone to, at least in the short term, really fill the holes that were created by trading Hampus Lindholm and Josh Manson. I mean, let's face it, they were really basically down to, two real, I guess you could say, top four minute type defenders on the blue line. So it's no secret that they needed help in that area. And I thought that, if they were, we're going to be interested, which obviously that's proven out to be the case, that they would look toward a short-term deal and maybe hope that, John's, the foray that he went through in free agency, and we can get all into that too. That's a whole nother issue in itself. But that maybe that he wouldn't find those long-term big money deals that he was seeking, and that he would come down, whether not necessarily in the asking price, but more so in the term, because I think that's what Pat Verbeek was really seeking, was someone that can help right now, but someone that they wouldn't have to commit 5, 6, 7 years to, especially someone of Klingberg's age at 29, going on 30. So I think that's what they were looking for. Certainly they targeted him. So surprised, I mean, certainly a little, just in the sense of, they typically haven't been the kind of team that have landed those quote unquote name free agents or so. We all know that they have plenty of money to spend here, but there is a little surprise in that. But you can certainly see, if that was all part of the plan, what that was, and why it would work, in the sense that, hey, it's again, this is a quality defender. He's going to be able to give Anaheim some good minutes. I mean, he's not well up into his 30s, and even though some would say he's coming off a down year, so to speak. Given what they needed on that blue line, they needed some help desperately, and so he's going to be able to provide that, and he's going to be able to, not only help him, help the Ducks, but maybe more importantly, help himself here in terms of maintaining his value for his next contract.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much to there's so much to unpack there, but I do know that he had immediate availability today, and I haven't had a chance to look into it, but I'm assuming you were there, that you were you were part of that. So, what was kind of just the feel talking to him and just his comments about the team? What's your sense of where his head is at, and maybe a little bit into maybe the future here? I mean, I know it's a 1-year deal, but just some takeaways maybe from that availability.
No, yeah, I'd be happy to share some insight. I mean, I am interested, and I am looking into maybe doing something down the line on just the entire process, for him, because it was sort of rather unique in that he's coming off as a 7-year deal with Dallas, and perhaps if this were, a decade ago, a few years ago, whatsoever, he probably would have landed a huge deal. But in the way that in the climate that you're in now, we're really, when you're dealing with big, contracts, perhaps max term projects, one, you've got to project. Two, you're really more looking at a younger age and being able to project that you're going to be able to get that player's prime years, as part of a majority of that contract. Well, as we stated, he's already 29, 30, 30 years old. You don't want to get in the situation where you are, wrapped up into a deal that's going to be an anchor in year 3, in year 4, in year 5, or where it's really going to hamper other decisions that you may make down the line. What he said, I think he was very realistic, and I think what you'll find in John Klingberg is that he's a very open individual from all I've heard, and even today, he's one where he's going to answer questions. He said himself he's a very social individual. I think he's going to immerse himself well, in Anaheim. I think he's very realistic in what he put out there in terms of his goals for this year. He's
Right.
coming. He's coming to he's coming to a new team. He knows what this is about. Okay, the contract, 1 year, 7 million. Is really the best thing that he could do in the situation, given that maybe the longer term deals that they passed on is coming to bite them, or maybe there weren't as many offers coming in as was originally thought. So this is a way to sort of salvage a free agency process going sideways, and he acknowledged that. He even talked about um, you know he talked about um, going away from his long-term agent Peter Wallen, and the 12-year relationship that
Yeah.
they had, and that they built. I mean, really all ever since he was coming up. I mean, those two have been together. That that couldn't have been an easy decision for him to do, um, then he also talked about how it's in the end he had to make a business decision, and 3 weeks, you're going 3 weeks into free agency and you're John Klingberg and you're still on the market. That really
Yeah.
that doesn't happen, and that really frankly shouldn't happen, given a player of his stature and what he's done over his career. So he's realistic. Like I said, it's we know what this is about. He knows what this is about, and the Ducks know what this is about too. And as I wrote too, I mean, this is something that gives them a number of options. As to him playing well, which is going to be at the core part of him. But whether they try to keep him over time, if all goes right with the season, and they view him as someone that they can take into the future, or be someone that can be a very, very valuable asset come trade deadline.
Yeah, certainly. I think that the headline of your article last week kind of says it all, which is that the signing made sense for both sides. I think that both sides of this equation have incentive for this to go well. For John Klingberg, he's on a 1 year deal and he has to play well.
Sure,
and he and
exactly.
he and he can't pout. He can't be unhappy with the situation. Even and if that, and I'll get to that. But basically, everyone wants this to work. Everyone has a reason for this to work. The Ducks want him to play well because, on one hand, if they end up deciding not to bring him back, maybe you can flip him and you get more for him, or he helps you push for the playoffs. And for John Klingberg, if he plays well, it goes both ways. Again, he can heighten his chances of getting that great contract he's looking for on the other side, whether it's from the Ducks or from another team, or if the Ducks are looking to maybe part ways with him at the trade deadline, then he'll be a higher commodity. He'll be more sought after at that point. So I really don't think that there's a way that this doesn't work for anyone. I've thought about this a few different ways, and I just don't think, at least from the Ducks' perspective, I think really the Ducks are they're the side you can definitely say there's no way they can lose this, because even if John Klingberg doesn't play to his potential, it's a 1 year deal. They can
Right.
trade him. No harm, no foul. Klingberg, on the other hand, if he doesn't play well, there's potential repercussions. But again, he's set himself up well here. I guess just from your perspective, because the last, let's call it, I don't know, ever since the last Randy Carlyle year, we'll call it, this team has not been not been the most exciting. Let's just put it that way. Not the most competitive. They've struggled, and I think last year was the first year, maybe even a little bit the pandemic season, where you saw some glimpses at the end with Zegras. There have been glimmers that this team is about to maybe turn a corner. Maybe not this year, but that it's coming. For you, though, now going into this upcoming season with the additions up front and now with John Klingberg, do you feel any sort of just being more energized to cover this team and to watch this team because maybe there's just a little more at stake all of a sudden?
You know what? I would agree with that. I actually felt, and I think some of that energy even came, it was. I think even last season, there was a little bit of a re-energized feeling,
Right.
because like you said, I mean, the couple of years before that, um, it wasn't a. Let's be frank, it wasn't an exciting team, and it's it's doubly bad. It's one thing to lose. It's another thing to be boring when you lose.
Yeah. To
you
never
know,
score.
right? Exactly. So last year, I think you saw a little bit of resurgence just in terms of the team being interesting. The things that Trevor Zegras might do on any
Right.
given night or whatsoever. How Troy Terry, blew up. Even if the year was really and it was almost divided into two teams,
Yeah.
two very vastly different teams within the course of a season whatsoever. I mean, there was just so many things that were interesting in that. I mean, even the general manager change. I mean,
Yeah.
after having one in place for so long, so that all added to it. And I think this year is going to be it's going to be fascinating for a number of different things. I mean, one, we're obviously entering the post Ryan Getzlaf era.
Yep.
You knew this day would event, would one day come at some point. But I think it's going to be really fascinating to see how the team evolves, without, really the one that's defined this franchise for so long. Who sort of steps up, maybe not even necessarily one person, but who sort of steps up and kind of helps fill that void. Maybe not even necessarily just his, the play on the ice, but the impact off the ice. Sort of the one that the franchise kind of pins its hopes on whatsoever. Who kind of steps up to to fill that void. So there's that. Certainly the additions that they've made. I mean, these are useful players. I mean, are they? Is it enough to get them in the playoffs? Not at this point. I don't think so. I mean, as I said, they are going to be competitive. They're going to be much more watchable.
Yes.
Group.
Which is important.
It's important, especially in Southern California.
Right.
Especially. And so, yeah, no, it's going to be fascinating to see how some certain individual players evolve. How Zegras, is this where he starts taking the steps toward not just being a highlight reel, not just being a personality, but being a true star. Being a someone that perhaps maybe taking the steps toward being a superstar. We don't know. But we'll start to see where he can sort of take his ceiling to. Jamie Drysdale, Troy Terry, Mason McTavish. I mean, I
Yeah.
think there's going to be a lot of excitement toward, seeing, one, if he'll make the club. We can't assume, but, we like to think that he'll have a good shot at doing it. But, also, what kind of impact can he have, coming out of basically doing everything and anything that you can on the junior level, to show that you're ready to graduate beyond that. So I'm looking forward to it. I really am. I think there's a number of good reasons to see, just how things will develop, as each month passes.
Yeah, it's so funny how one move can just change everything. And it's not as if John Klingberg is this superstar. I mean, all due respect, he's a great defenseman, offensive ceiling, dynamic on the power play, but they didn't go out and get a true kind of star level franchise player. And yet, because the fact that this team has been so just devoid of excitement in the last couple of years, getting a guy of his caliber, which is a very good one, especially offensively, it changes things. And I think to your point about filling the void of leadership, I mean, just kind of reading, not even reading between the lines, but reading Pat Verbeek's comments, his availability a couple of weeks ago, I mean, that seems to be a big reason why they brought in Ryan Strome, was to kind of get a bit of a veteran example down the middle, or maybe he shifts to the wing. I do agree with your take, though, that, the playoffs remain a bit of an open question, because even even with John Klingberg, who I think goes a long, long way to shoring up their defensive depth. I mean, you've seen the depth chart on the back end. It's still it's still
Yeah.
not the prettiest. And I also, I mean, this is something I'm be curious to get your take on. I'm curious who is even going to play with John Klingberg, because he's such an, kind of a unique player in that he's so talented offensively, and yet if you look at the numbers, like, he kind of, that style tends to lead to some offense coming back the other way. And so right now for you, I mean, I'm not expecting you to have this completely ready, but are there some names that maybe you think that they're looking at or that you have in mind? Is it really going to be a Vakanainen Klingberg pairing? I mean, who the heck is going to play with this guy?
you know, well, first off, Felix, we're supposed to know exactly,
Yes.
who the four lines going to be and who
Yes.
the three pairings going to to be.
Yes, exactly.
In fact,
We're supposed to know
I'm
that.
waiting on a text from Dallas Eakins right as we speak.
Yeah.
I tease, folks. No, yeah, no, it is interesting. I have thought about it. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Who's going to play with him. Yes, John Klingberg has always been known, for his offensive ability from the blue line, and his ability to generate action from there. And actually too, I wonder too. I think that he could, not only he'll be motivated, as we talked about earlier. He'll be motivated obviously this year, but also I think too, maybe getting out of Dallas's system where he played under Rick Bowness, which was very, sort of defensive oriented and whatsoever, and they didn't have a lot of, say, great scores up front whatsoever. That may also re-energize him too, because as we've seen with Anaheim, they will activate their D men. It may lead
Yeah.
the chances the other way, but they will do that. Yeah, in thinking about that. I mean, they still do need someone to shore up on that left side beyond Cam Fowler. They do need someone, whether they're going to bring someone in from the outside or look inside and hope someone does step forward. But I can see maybe the possibility of him playing with Fowler on the top pairing.
Yeah.
Just in the sense that, okay, yes, they both are known for their skating ability and being more, sort of offensive minded or whatsoever. But I could possibly see where Cam, maybe not necessarily takes a step back from providing the transition game that we've come to see him do for over the last decade. But he's someone, and I know that he does get he has been knocked,
Yeah.
over the years. I mean, and some of those criticisms has been very fair. So some of those, but I do think that his defensive game, his end zone game, has improved over time, and I could see where maybe he does a little subjugating himself, and be maybe the little more responsible pair, for that too, so that Klingberg will be allowed to, create. Do what he does, which is create offense from the blue line and pinch and maybe be that fourth attacker or so on rushes, because he's proven to have had a higher offensive ceiling,
Yeah.
than Cam. So I could see that as a possibility. The other thing would be, okay, well, if you were to have Jamie with Cam, which is shown to play, fairly well on some occasions. They haven't done it too often. Then maybe maybe John will be sort of the dominant half of whatever second pairing they do come up with or manage with. But so yeah, that'll be interesting to see. But I do think that not only will he help on the ice, but I think it's going to help out Jamie in a sense. Take some pressure off of him as he continues to grow in this league. And it also pushes Kevin Shattenkirk down to what I think is the best
Yes.
role for him at this stage of his career, which is as a third pairing, second power play unit type of guy. I think he could still be effective in that type of role.
Yeah, I think that I actually am. I think you're selling me on a Fowler Klingberg pairing. I think maybe Klingberg's presence is like you said, to push down some of those other guys on the right side and take some heat off of a Jamie Drysdale, certainly off of a Kevin Shattenkirk. So it'll be fascinating, but that's why they play the games. That's why the coaches get paid the big bucks. So we'll see what ends up happening. We don't have too much time left with you here, so I do want to get into a couple things that I thought might be interesting for our listeners. As someone who covers this team on basically a day-to-day basis and that is so plugged in, we were talking with Chris Peters, who covers the prospect world last time, what a typical day of work looks like for him. And I guess for you as a beat writer, I guess this answer can really vary, but what is your process like, of day-to-day getting stories done, cranking out as much written content as you do in a single season? How do you manage it?
Well, first off, Felix, we're doing good time wise.
Okay.
We're doing fine. Boy, try, trying to um, trying to kind of come up with a concise answer to that.
Yeah, it doesn't
That,
have to
that in itself
be.
is a challenge.
Yes, I'm sure that there's not a
For
perfect
myself
system.
too. No, for
Yeah.
myself as well. No, I not to get too technical or boring in the day by day or whatsoever, but you certainly you certainly go after whether it's the practice day or going to the morning skates when they do when they do have them whatsoever. um, I know what I typically do. I'm one where I do try to keep a very close eye on changes that may occur or so, where you see maybe sort or switch in the lines. I do pay attention to that a lot, because I mean, let's face it. I mean, they can, changes that can sort of not only maybe impact that game, that particular evening, but they could have longer term ramifications or so if someone is dropped down the lineup or someone is moved up, in the lineup or whatsoever. So there's things like that I certainly pay attention to. I know that I try to. Uh, I try to do as much as I can in terms of gain as much access as I can. And I think sometimes I think some people on the outside don't maybe realize it, because I think sometimes they may think that, oh, you've got access to everyone every day, and
Hmm.
that's not the case.
Yeah.
That's decidedly not the case. The team, and all teams do this, not just Anaheim whatsoever, but they typically limit you to who you ask for, or usually two or three players per day, along with the coach. The coach is generally talks every single day, for the most part. um, but I'm looking at talking to people for stories where there are things that I'm working on, not necessarily for that day, but maybe I'm setting up pieces that I'm building, that may run a week from that practice, or a month from that practice. If it's a big piece, something like a Ryan Getzlaf 1,000 game story, or I mean 1,000 game feature, or something
Right.
along those lines. So it really does vary, but you try to make the most of that access when you can. And then and then in the afternoon or so, if I think with the athletics, certainly, it's a lot more free flowing. I'm not necessarily, say, on a fixed deadline.
Hmm.
It is my goal, and I hope that I you know do or whatsoever to provide fresh content on a regular basis. You certainly don't want things to become stale on the website. um, but but that's certainly what I attempt to do, whether it's writing every other day, every 3 days, but sometimes during a very active period, and there's some great storylines and whatsoever. I'm writing 3 or 4 straight days or
Wow.
so. It really depends. The thing about my job, I will admit to this. I love doing interviews. I love talking to people, whether it's players, even some executives when you get when you get the chance to, coaches, staff, people behind the scenes, all that or whatsoever. One thing though, if there's somebody that could transcribe all my all my interviews and whatsoever
Best part of the job.
in a much more timely fashion than I can do it, I will hire them. But no, I think that's the really the key difference in what I'm doing now, in which I enjoy, is that I'm not necessarily writing about the game itself.
Right.
It's that it's usually something within the game, or it's something that maybe there's been a trend, and that game that night something happened that has continued to define that trend, that fits very neatly in the story that I'm trying to build. But then there are nights like the night in Buffalo, the last December, where something just happens, and your mouth is just wide open, and you're looking at people in the press box. You're like, did he really just do that? and you just run with that. You're just writing. You're trying to write the best possible, most involved story that you can, on what just occurred, which in that instance brought millions and millions of views. You're trying to write something that can capture the feeling of that occurrence, that event, and something that that hopefully readers are going to truly enjoy, and maybe even feel like they were there, or at least they were, they were able, in reading the piece, to capture what happened, what led to that, what happened behind all the stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good balance. Is there are some games that just feel kind of like they're part of a bigger trend, and you're kind of accumulating data. You're kind of fact finding in those games, and that's going to inform a later story or a bigger storyline. And then, like you alluded to, there are some nights where, I mean, I can think last season there weren't too many of those, but there are some nights like that one in Buffalo, the famous Segras to Milano goal, that it's just, you got to talk about it. The other one that unfortunately comes to mind is the incident in Arizona with involving Troy Terry. It's those kind of, but there are those games. They're part of the story, and
Sure.
so yeah, and so I think that that's a fantastic balance. I do want to ask you though, how are you a coffee drinker, first of all?
I am,
Okay.
but I usually try to limit it to one.
Okay. I was
Yeah,
gonna ask you how much
yeah,
caffeine
yeah.
is involved here.
If I go more than one or whatsoever, then I'm a little, let's just say, don't be next to me. Look out, because I might get a little punchy or whatsoever. But
Yeah, I think there's a limit of usefulness for caffeine. After a couple, it's just okay. I'm very energetic, but none of this is actually, at least for me, going towards any productive ends. So I think we should probably end on this. This is something that I think people probably are curious to know. Ryan Getzlaf retired, and I think the way that it was handled was just so perfect, from his last game to the announcement to the ceremony. All of that was just so perfect. I guess just for you, first off, what was it like covering Ryan Getzlaf over the years, from an actual journalist perspective? And then also, what do you have a good Ryan Getzlaf anecdote for us? A fun little story maybe to wrap things up here.
I tell you what, I'm admittedly not the best at storytelling or things of that
Me neither.
nature. I try to tell stories, and I'll see my wife or some friends, and they'll just, their eyes will glaze over.
I know that
um,
feeling
but I
doing
tell
this
you what,
podcast.
yeah, I tell you what, over the years, and I was very fortunate to, cover him from his very first days in the NHL. It was something. And I'm sort of weaving Corey Perry into this a little bit because
Right. How can't you?
exactly right. And it was interesting how when they first came up, um, uh, Ryan was, kind of a little bit, on the brash side. He didn't. I mean, he didn't mind, talking and giving, some. I don't know, but he was a little bold. He was kind of on the bold side, whereas Corey wouldn't talk at all. He wouldn't say anything. He wouldn't say boo. And it's funny. It's funny how over all those years, you know, I've had some great one-on-one conversations and interviews with Ryan or whatsoever, but after being, becoming captain, you sort of lapse more into captain speak,
Right.
and maybe you're a little bit more milk toast in your comments, or whatsoever. Whereas Corey, over time, just, I mean, even now, he's like just become this like great person to talk to him in terms of reporters and whatsoever. And you never would have thought that was the case way back when. So it's interesting how they've, sort of exchanged a little bit, in this places. But, as far as, Ryan's concerned, I, again, what I really enjoy is, when you would get him and on a, in a after a practice, where it wasn't the morning of the game or whatsoever, and you just kind of would get that, those rare moments, and I hope that I was able to build up enough collateral with him over the years to where when we did have sit downs, he could be, very honest, very honest about his play, very honest about his family, about, how his parents' divorce affected him and how that sort of shaped him as he became an adult and a father, and a husband, and whatsoever. That those are things that I recall, him going, into that, and you don't get that every day from professional athletes, whatsoever. But because by and large, most of them still, will keep their private lives pretty private, and will only let you, go in so far. So I really appreciated those few opportunities to where, he would, would let you, inside or whatsoever. And I think too, I saw someone that matured, over time, that, that, that would channel, any frustration that he would have on the ice. By and large, you could tell how in the early days, he was just full on roar and would just yell at officials and, and
Yeah.
all that or whatsoever. And it sort of evolved to, at the end, where if there was a call that he hated or didn't like, he would just have this kind of sneering smile
Yeah.
at them, and sort of not say anything. Um, but even, just even off the ice or whatsoever, just, the maturity that he would show. But, one thing I could say, behind the scenes too, especially when we were, in the locker rooms, and knock on wood, hopefully that will be back in case in the fall here, was someone that Ryan was someone that would throw barbs at you, but wouldn't mind it, but would not mind it at all, when you threw it back at him. I mean, I think he enjoyed the give and take, whether it was with his own teammates.
That's who he is, it
Um,
seems.
that's exactly what, yeah, that's exactly what he is. I mean, he did that with reporters. He's private in a way, but also very social. And that was proven. And you would hear the stories about how, he was always the first one to reach out to people that were, players that were acquired by the team, but, new draft picks, whatsoever. He would be the first one to welcome and say, hey, look, what can I do? Is there anything I can do to help you make this transition to Anaheim, whether you were just coming up or whether you were an 11-year veteran, that was traded to the team or signed to the team. I think those are the things that I will certainly, remember about Ryan, and I'm hopeful and anxious to see what he does in his post-playing career. I think right now he's just enjoying family. He's got that big brood of kids that
The chicken coop.
yeah, exactly, yeah. He's still trying to put together the signature line that he's been going. But no, I will be interested to see what he does with his post-playing career, because I do think that he can have a lot to offer a team, as long as he wants to put in the time that's involved.
Yeah, no, that's all great insight. I have to sneak in one more question because I feel like
Sure.
that's what you have to do when you're talking to someone. Between Dallas Eakins, Bruce Boudreau, and Randy Carlisle, who is the easiest and or hardest to get information out of regarding injuries, line combinations? Who is the most fun to deal with? Let's put a positive spin on it.
Well, let's see here. As far as Randy, we know that him and announcing his starting goalie.
Your favorite.
Yeah. I don't know if he exactly said this, but basically his attitude was over my dead body.
Of course he did.
Would he give up his goalie or whatsoever? But strange. Although I tell you what, strangely enough, though, he was actually fairly open in terms of injuries, like the types of injuries. I think that's kind of changed over time. I think pretty much all teams have adopted that whole lower body, upper body,
yes,
deal or whatsoever. But even the first go round with Randy, I mean, this was actually quite open, in terms of injuries and the timelines. Bruce was, I mean, Bruce is Bruce. He's just, I mean, there's almost no one, maybe no one like him. But the thing about him with injuries, though, is that I would remember how, he would talk about a player who's injured and would give off the vibe that he'll only be out for a few days, and 2-3 weeks later he's still around the corner with whatsoever. Dallas is probably in between those two, but Dallas is a communicator. I think he works well with reporters. He knows what we do. He knows the job that we have. He knows how much he can say and maybe what he can't say. But I think he's professional. In that regard.
He's polished. Yeah.
Yeah. Polish is a good word. He's very polished. Maybe sometimes too, you almost want him to be a little more off the cuff. You almost want him to be a little more, you almost want to see a little more emotion even sometimes in his comments or whatsoever. But three interesting cases, three different cases, but there's bits and pieces and whatsoever that I've enjoyed and not necessarily enjoyed among all three.
Well, I think that says it all. I've thoroughly enjoyed having you on here, Eric. This was a blast. I feel like we could do another hour here, maybe somewhere down the line. But I really do appreciate you coming on. For everyone that's listening right now, we're going to keep this going on the other side. We're going to do an ad read, but I'm going to urge everyone to check out Eric on Twitter at IcemanCometh, the Iceman himself. Check out his work on The Athletic. And Eric, I hope you enjoy the rest of what little is left of the offseason. Hope you enjoy your Dodgers as they continue to just buy up the Major League Baseball as a whole. And yeah, just wishing you all the best. Any closing remarks from you here?
Hey, I believe they're still winning, by the way, against the Giants, so it's already a good night.
Oh, good. That's not saying much these days.
As long as we land Juan Soto.
Well, the odds seem pretty good that will happen, just based on everyone else.
Every player, okay. I've seen the things about buying every single player whatsoever. Look, just build a better farm system, and then
Yeah.
And then plug them in or trade them in for the Stars. Okay, just
Yeah.
do
Yeah. I
better.
mean, it must be nice having owners who spend. As a Giants fan, I don't totally know what that's like. So,
Well,
okay.
you got three titles in 5 years.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
you know
those aren't too bad. I'll take those.
you
Yeah.
had you had a number of years where you could hold those over Dodger fan.
Yeah. The tables have turned a little bit though, unfortunately.
A little bit.
All right, Eric. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us, and yeah, hopefully we'll talk to you soon. Have a great rest of the off season.
Thanks, Felix. I really appreciate the time. I very much enjoyed it.
Of course. You have a good one.
You too, man.
All right, so we are going to do a quick ad read here, everybody, and then on the other side of that, we are going to get into your questions. So I'm going to put a call for questions here in the Twitch chat. I'm going to do that right now, and we'll get maybe a little bit more into the nitty gritty of the Klingberg ad and maybe some more off season stuff. But first, I have to tell you about our friends at Manscaped. Is crotch discomfort hurting your game? Fear no more. The kings of crotch comfort, Manscaped, have spent 2 years designing the most comfortable boxer briefs out there. Sleek, soft, comfortable, and flexible. The brand new Boxers 2.0 from Manscaped take your balls to the royal ball throne. The global leaders in below-the-waist grooming have the Lawnmower 4.0 for the trimmin', so you can wear the Boxers 2.0 for the chillin'. They even trademarked the jewel pouch, so you know it's serious. I think it's time you invest in your family jewels. So let your bulge breathe and get 20% off plus free shipping by using our code CTP. That's like Crash the Pond CTP at manscaped.com. Let's say you're on a date and your partner catches that Manscaped on the waistband of your underwear. It's almost guaranteed to raise some eyebrows and act like a billboard on the highway to Pleasure Town. Who doesn't want that? This is thanks to their Lawnmower 4.0, the best electric trimmer for below-the-waist grooming. Their 4th-generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 is waterproof and also has a 4000K LED. I don't even know what 4000K means, but it sounds like a lot. Spotlight you need for a more precise shave. Beyond ball cleaning, though, Manscaped is focused on ball comforting, because who doesn't want comfortable balls? With the new Boxers 2.0. Boost confidence everywhere you are, knowing you're wearing the absolute best pack for your sack. That almost broke me. These boxers are a game changer, and features include the jewel pouch, a pouch designed to cradle your boys in their own special place, lined with perforated performance fabric to keep them well ventilated. Is this heaven on earth? More like heaven on girth. The micromodal fabric is buttery soft and breathable, keeping your cucumber cool. Walk, run, strut. These moisture-wicking boxers breathe without breaking a sweat. The tagless waistband hugs your body without digging in, and it lays flat against your skin to reduce chafing. I can attest that these help reduce that, as someone who unfortunately suffers from that. The front fly opening gives easy access and makes bathroom breaks quick and efficient. If you're at a baseball game this summer and, there's some sweat going on, there you go. Multiple ways for entry and passage for your package. You can even choose from an arrangement of designs and colors and sizes, ranging from small to 3XL. For all of my guys out there, from El Jefe to Nighthawk, your boys will be in the right hands. So, if you want in on these awesome underwear or the Lawnmower 4.0, here's what you can do. And this will also help support this show so we can keep this thing going and have awesome guests like Eric Stevens on. Get 20% off plus free shipping with our code CTP, like Crash the Pond, at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with our code CTP at manscaped.com. Up your crotch game, because once the Boxers 2.0 touch your sack, you'll never go back. There you go. Okay, let's jump into the questions here. I'm not seeing any questions in the Twitch right now. Okay, so if everyone can just put question before your actual question, just so I can see it. Jake is in our chat, though. Jake Rudolph, of course, is in here saying, have I been replaced? No, Jake, you have not, because I'm not totally sure I want to do that ad read ever again. So my hat comes off to you, the hat that I'm not wearing, for reading those ads, because that is quite the undertaking. Just keeping a straight face alone is not the easiest. So I'm going to get through a couple questions here from Twitch, and I also do have some questions from Twitter, and we will get your questions answered here. So let's go first to Twitch. So let me pull this up. Question: did you ask for Eric's favorite way of cooking stingray? No, I did not. I should have though, but I don't think you would have understood the joke. That's the thing with inside jokes, is only a certain few people get them. This question from P Blaster 7: who would be the next captain? I am unconvinced that there will be a captain next season. I see a scenario where there is a kind of committee approach to the leadership core next season, and I think that that's what's likeliest to occur. But if they were to pick a captain, though, if they absolutely had to pick a captain, my money would be on Cam Fowler. I don't see this team handing over the reins to a Trevor Zegras or a Troy Terry or even a Jamie Drysdale quite yet. I'm not even sure if Drysdale would be a candidate given his reserve nature, but I just don't think there will be a captain next season. Okay, this question from Clay Dog: if the Ducks signed Kadri, how would the lines look like? Well, supposedly Kadri's going to the Islanders, although that seems to be very much unconfirmed. But if Nazem Kadri were to be a Duck, which I would heavily bet against, he would be at the first line center. He would be on a line with Troy Terry. You can plug and play whoever you want on that left side. You could throw Ryan Strome onto the wing. You could get Frank Vetrano up there, Max Comtois, give him a shot. He's really a guy who can play all over the lineup, and you can really plug him in with any type of player because he plays that kind of facilitating two-way style. So yeah, good question. If he were to come on board, he would be the first line center. This question from Here's Johnny71: do the Ducks still take on a bad contract before the season starts? So that's a fun question because one thing that we've been so focused on, this offseason has been the Ducks cap situation. And thanks to the John Klingberg sighting, the Ducks are actually above the cap floor. So they're no longer, they were at, I think, -4 before that. They are now above the cap floor, so they don't really have to spend any more money if they don't want to. But they have $18 million in cap space, which is a lot, especially if you look around the NHL. They have the third most cap space of anyone, although that being said, the Coyotes are not at the cap floor, so those numbers could change. But even still, they're going to be in that upper echelon, or they're going to remain there for now unless they start spending more money. So yes, they absolutely could do something like that where they go out and get a bad contract. I don't know exactly who that would be, but that option is very much open for Pat Verbeek at this moment in time. And Jake is saying he's out. Off to hold baby Luke. Well, yes, good luck, Jake. I think that sounds more important than listening to me ramble here. This question from Hardcore Luchador. Question: I know we're on the fence about Fowler-Klingberg pairing, but with the right three in front, how do you feel about the transition offense? So I don't know if I'm on the fence about Fowler-Klingberg. I think that could be an excellent pairing. It's just the question more so is what is the trade-off down the lineup. So who do you put Jamie Drysdale with? What kind of workload can Jamie Drysdale handle? Because he's really exclusively been put with the team's best defenseman since he's been a member of the Ducks. Is that going to be something that Dallas Eakins is going to be comfortable with in his second full season, is to put him on a line or on a pairing with someone who maybe isn't that of that caliber? We'll see. But I'm not against that pairing whatsoever. I think Eric Stevens actually kind of talked me into it a little bit, just because I think that's how you get the most out of Klingberg. Honestly, I don't see another left shot defenseman in this lineup who's going to maximize Klingberg in the way that Cam Fowler will. So that's a fun question. I think that, the transition offense is going to be awesome if you get those two together. It's going to be really something special. Cam Fowler is so good at moving the puck up ice with his feet, with his passing, and Klingberg can be that rover type, stretching the ice, using the width of the ice, getting open, joining the rush. And so I think that could just be one of the more fun pairings in the NHL, honestly, and maybe even one of the better pairings in the NHL. We'll see. That's a good question, though. This question from That Guy Bobski: comparing Terry and Perry, that's a mouthful, comparing Troy Terry and Corey Perry's age 24 season player cards, it looks like Terry is ahead, analytically speaking. Will Terry be the better player at the end of his career? Wow, that is quite the question. Let's dig into it. I think with Corey Perry, looking at his trajectory, at age 24, He had 27 goals, 49 assists for 76 points. That was the 09-10 season. And up to that point, there was more track record for excellence with him for point production. He had a 72-point season to his name, a 54-point season at age 22. I mean, he was in the NHL at age 20. And so as great as Troy Terry looked last season, and as much as I think that trajectory is going to continue, for the reasons that we've laid out in this podcast before, that the shooting percentage, even if it comes down from his perspective individually, on the ice last season, guys were just not finishing his passes around him. And so that can offset a decrease in goal scoring, which is kind of inevitable given how high he was shooting last season. But I just don't think that Troy Terry is going to surpass the kind of career that Corey Perry had and is having. I mean, Corey Perry got a Hart Trophy, a 50-goal season to his name, multiple 70-plus point seasons, almost 100-point season. Maybe that's in the cards for Troy Terry, but there just isn't as much of a track record for Terry. Now, maybe this is a boring answer. Maybe if Jake were here, he would be saying, yes, Terry will be better, but I still think we need to put some respect on Corey Perry's name. All right, let's get to this other question from Rooch20 asking, where do you think the Ducks will finish? Who will the Ducks trade for Klingberg at the deadline? Where will the Ducks draft in the 2023 draft? And who do you think they should get? Wow. Well, that's a pretty loaded question, but I'll try to get through it as best as I can. So where do I think the Ducks will finish? Well, right now, I think the difficulty for the Ducks is that undoubtedly their ceiling has increased now. I mean, I think Ryan Strome and Frank Vetrano helped solidify their, just kind of their floor, helping bring some insulation for those younger guys. But now it's really, I think with John Klingberg and his ability on the power play, his ability to join the rush, to really maximize everyone that's on the ice offensively, that does raise their ceiling, and that does make them undoubtedly more competitive. When you factor in the additions up front, maybe more additions to come. Pat Verbeek did say he wanted to add another forward. The internal improvement, maybe a bounce back season from John Gibson and improved power play. I think you can almost pencil in the power play for improvement now with John Klingberg on board. The Ducks are going to make a bigger push for the playoffs. I still don't know how they get in, though, because if you look at the division, Calgary, yes, they undoubtedly have taken a beating this offseason, losing Johnny Gaudreau, losing Matthew Tkachuk, but they did plug some holes, and they're still a solid team. That's still not a team I would say the Ducks are for sure better than right now. Edmonton. Look, Edmonton has its foibles. Undoubtedly, they are a team that's, you just never know what to expect from them. I'm not so sold that Jack Campbell is the answer in net, but they've got Connor McDavid, and there's a track record now that that team with that talent is able to get through the regular season. So I think on paper you could maybe squint and say the Ducks might have a little more depth than the Edmonton Oilers, but it just doesn't matter when you have Connor McDavid. LA Kings. I mean, Ducks fans are not going to want to hear this, but the LA Kings got a lot better this offseason. Kevin Fiala is a stud. We've talked about him a lot in this podcast. He's someone that the Ducks could have certainly used. They got him. They have young pieces that are going to continue to get better. They made the playoffs last year. I think that they are ahead of the Ducks as well. San Jose is not going to be good. You can say that the Ducks will be better than the Sharks. I'm prepared to say that. No, don't think that's a very bold take, but I'm prepared to say it. Regardless, the Ducks will be better than the San Jose Sharks this upcoming season. Seattle, they've got young, fun pieces, right? They drafted Shane Wright. They brought in, they have Matty Beniers coming up. There's some fun pieces there, but that is such a boring team, and maybe they're due for some improvement in net, just some regression there. But I think the Ducks are going to be better than the Kraken as well. I think that they have a very good chance of being better than the Kraken, so I'll put them ahead of the Kraken. Vancouver. Vancouver is kind of a rudderless ship. Don't really know what to expect from them, but they do have good talent throughout the lineup. They have good coach in Bruce Boudreau. I'm going to say it's a little bit of a toss-up between the Canucks and the Ducks. And then lastly, Vegas. I mean, Vegas is just having one hell of an offseason, and not in the good sense. It's been a hellish offseason for them. Having to lose Max Pacioretty for nothing is absolutely wild. but they've got a ton of talent still in that lineup, and they're going to have a full season of Jack Eichel. I think the Ducks just are not better than them quite yet. So really, when you shake it all out, the Ducks are really only maybe better than 3 teams in the division. It's going to be tough sledding. I don't know if they make the playoffs. So hopefully that answers that question. Who will the Ducks trade for Klingberg? I don't know if they're going to trade him. I would say that there's, if I had to bet on it, I think that John Klingberg will be traded at this trade deadline because, like I just said, I don't know if the Ducks are going to have a realistic shot at getting into the playoffs. Maybe they'll surprise us. How fun would that be? But likelier than not, it's just really tough sledding in that Western Conference and even in the Pacific Division. So I think that this is part of the master plan for Pat Verbeek is you trade John Klingberg, you recoup that asset, and hey, maybe he comes back in the offseason. So my bet would be that he's gone. That would be kind of, wouldn't be the most exciting end to this story, but I kind of would like to be wrong about that. It would make for a more fun end to the season, but he can get back some pieces. I mean, if John Klingberg has as good of a season as we think he can have with the Ducks, given all that usage, playing with Cam Fowler, getting all the power play time with Trevor Zegras, Troy Terry, they can get something back. I mean, the precedent for a player like him seems to be a pick, a prospect, maybe a player, right? Maybe just a pick and a prospect, maybe a first and a second. But I think you're getting a good return for John Klingberg, especially considering that the Ducks can do the full salary retention, that it's not a full season of his cap hit. So it's like what we were just talking about with Eric. It's a win-win scenario for everybody involved, the fact that this deal has happened. Okay, I don't know if I'm going to be able to scroll all the way back up here. So if you have a question in our Twitch chat right now that I did not get to, if you would be so kind as to repost it, and I will get to it. Outside of that, I'm going to get to some quick hitters from Twitter here. I think some of these we already covered, but I'll just see if there's anything that's really different. Kyle asked, do I see Austin Matthews coming to the Ducks eventually? I don't see that happening. I'm sorry. As fun as that would be, I don't know. I would give him whatever he wants to get him to come. He's at worst the 3rd best player in the NHL, but I just don't think that's happening. Alex McKay asked, given Verbeek has had an offseason to assess and start reshaping the team, how much impact will he have on Aikens? Do you think Verbeek will be hands-off or try to influence the play a certain way? I think that they're having conversations, right? That was the whole point of keeping Dallas Aikens around, is to actually get to know him better, to give him that chance to see what he can do with a fleshed out roster. And that's what he'll have now. That is certainly, he's got a team to work with now. That excuse, and I hate to say it, but that's what it's been, is an excuse that he's never had a proper roster to work with. That's out the window now. He's got, I think, a pretty workable group. And so, yes, I think right now they're talking. I don't know how hands-on Pat Verbeek is going to be, but those philosophies, the things that he's after, are surely being instilled. That relationship is being established right now, and somewhere down the line, that'll make it easier for Pat Verbeek to interject. So hopefully that answers your question. This question from Alex 9000 at Sith Lord Buscemi asks, how does Klingberg compare to Shattenkirk? Oh boy. Well, let me start with that one because it's a two-parter. Klingberg is a lot better than Kevin Shattenkirk. And this is with all due respect. Kevin Shattenkirk has had a fine career, but last season was a big step back for him. He still got some ability to move the puck, if you look at the tracking data, but he just doesn't have anywhere near the offensive package that a John Klingberg provides, that ability to activate off of the blue line, to create his shot, to set up other teammates, to join the rush. John Klingberg's an elite offensive defenseman in my mind, especially on the power play. So they are similar in that neither is that great defensively, if you want to go there. But hopefully the big benefit of adding Klingberg outside of his own contributions is that Kevin Shattenkirk can now play a more proper role for his age, maybe on the third pairing. I think that would be ideal. Let's see here. With new jersey manufacturers, how would you feel about more themed/special jerseys, similar to MLB with City Connects? NBA teams frequently put out different jerseys, and more things like reverse retro jerseys. I'm on board. Yes, if the Ducks get Nike or whoever, I know people don't like Nike for whatever reason. Yes, give me all the jerseys. Why is it such a bad thing if a team goes through 7 to 8 jerseys in a season? I see nothing wrong there. I see absolutely nothing wrong there. Jerseys are fun. People love them. It makes the games more aesthetically appealing. So, yes, give me more jerseys. I'm all on board with that. This one is from Mike DeFlo, good friend of the pod. Who is Klingberg's top pairing line mate against the Kraken at Honda Center opening night? I'm going Cam Fowler. I think it's Cam Fowler. I've talked myself into this. I just don't see, unless they bring someone else in, I just don't see who else really makes sense. This one's from Sean, at Sean Siebel, asked, do we see a trade before the season starts? You know, if it's going to be a trade involving the Ducks now, it does feel like it's going to be a cap move, like a move to take on a bad contract and weaponize that cap space. I don't know if that'll happen, though, because the Ducks have a pretty fleshed out roster as it is. Maybe they try to add a forward via the trade route, but this feels close to what it's going to be. Maybe a couple more moves, but it feels close to what it's going to be. Let's move here down the list. Let's see. Why it's so hard? Okay, I'll move on from this one. We talked to Eric about the lines a little bit. This one from BB, at KBBB. Easy. Is Newport north or south? Correct answer is neither. I mean, I agree. Newport Beach is not north or south Orange County. It's in the middle. But the correct answer is south. It's not North County. Everyone agrees with that. Jake isn't here to argue, so it's South County if you're going to pick one of those two. Let's see. Moving on here. Questions that we can't really get answered now. And that appears to be it. Sorry, some of these I guess I didn't get to asking Eric, but he'll probably be back on the future, hopefully. So we'll get to those. Question here from Here's Johnny, again in our Twitch chat, saying, is there a better goalie name than Klang? Probably not, because as a goalie, when the puck goes off the post, that's always the best feeling. You feel like you got away with one. So if there's no other questions here, which I don't think that there are, I think we're going to wrap up. We're a little over an hour. We got some great conversation with Eric, and we got to answer your questions. That's always a fun time. We're going to get out of here after a few different things. So basically, if you've been enjoying the show, if you want to help us keep this thing going, and help us keep getting guests on, keep doing fun things to really give you the best possible Ducks listening experience, there's a few really easy ways for you to do so. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/crashthepond. For $1 a month, $1, you get access to our patrons-only Discord. It's so much fun. I mean, it's really the best. You get to chat with other diehard Ducks fans about the team, about the league at large. We have different channels within the actual Discord server. So, for example, we talk about food in there, other sports, movies, gaming, wrestling, whatever it is. It's a really fun community. I spend a lot of time there, to be honest, and it's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. That's for $1 a month. For $5 a month, though, you get access to not only the Discord server, but 2 bonus episodes a month, and that's where Jake and I go more in depth on the team. We go more in depth on the league. We'll do rankings. I think probably before the season start, one thing we like to do is a prospect ranking, Ducks prospect ranking. That's just something we don't always have the time to do on the regular show where we're talking about the news. So that's for $5 a month, and you can also pledge even more. You can do, if you go to the actual page, we have deals. So basically, if you do a one-time payment for the whole year, you save a little bit. So I would go check that out, patreon.com/crashthepond. It's you get something out of that in a great way. But if money's a little tight, totally understandable. You do not need to pledge us anything monetarily to help us keep this thing going. Search us on Apple Podcasts. Just search Crash the Pond. Leave us a rating and a review. Those go a long, long way. They help bump that algorithm, whatever it is, to help us get noticed and to keep the lights on. So just leave a review. It takes maybe a couple minutes at most. Leave something heartfelt, some inside jokes, Stingray jokes, whatever you got. Throw it all at us there. Also, you can find us on Spotify. Leave us a rating there. We really appreciate that. Find us on YouTube, youtube.com/crashthepond. That's where you can see the video version of the show. You can leave comments. Make sure to subscribe there. Turn on your notifications. Check out our website, crashthepond.com. We've got articles there. We've got a shop, crashthepond.com/shop. You can get a t-shirt. You can get, with our different logos, mugs, what have you. There's some goodies for you there. Get equipped before the season starts. And follow us on Twitter at Crash the Pond. I'm on Twitter at Felix_Sicard. And follow Jake on Twitter at Reindeer Games 91. And if you follow Jake on Twitter, I just gave you his handle, but if you already follow him or if you plan to follow him, tell him congratulations. I mean, he had a kid. That's no small thing. It's his first child. It's baby boy Luke. We want to support him because, as everyone seems to know here, being a first-time parent or just the parent of any newborn for those first few weeks, first few months are really tough. So give him some support at Reindeer Games 91. I'm sure that he will appreciate it. And on that note, thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for sticking around post Eric Stevens' interview and listening to me here. And thank you for everything. It's been a fun off season. We really appreciate that you guys are still listening. We see the numbers, and it's phenomenal to see that people are still tuning in, even as the news maybe dries up a little bit. Although this week we got lucky. John Klingberg certainly fixed that for us. That's going to do it for us tonight, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you at the next show. Have a good one.